Welcome, everybody, to the new and improved Three Whiskey Happy Hour, now sponsored by the Civitas Institute of the University of Texas at Austin. Henceforth, we'll be adding Texas barbecue to our list of culinary obsessions, along with the new McArch, this super humongous hamburger. I actually think that we get McDonald's advertising because I was listening to the podcast and there was a McDonald's ad. But
Really?
then I noticed that was an ad for all the podcasts I was listening to. So maybe it has to
No,
be
So
more
it's
me than
you.
the
no,
podcast.
no. Hold on,
You're
John.
a
I
little
think you have.
loud, John.
Yeah, I think you have the wrong microphones selected too.
Uh-oh,
Yeah.
I'm too loud.
Well,
Oh, you're
it's
right.
me.
Once.
Yeah, you have the
Ah,
wrong microphone.
there we
That's
go.
way
How's that?
that's way better. You know
Yeah,
what?
yeah. Actually, I didn't select the
So the
Yeti.
other thing
Sorry.
is,
You want me to redo it?
yeah, because you did a crap job of reading the script I gave you.
What do you think?
I thought he did fine.
That's exactly what you put.
I know it
So
is, but
sorry, everyone. Jesus.
Again, the actor is only as good as the writing. Come on.
go ahead and
That's when you
start over
wrote.
again, John. We want to leave so maybe. And you know what? I take it all back. It was your wrong microphone. That's why I thought that.
Oh, man.
Go ahead.
Okay. Ready? Okay, here we go again. Pretend you didn't hear anything.
Mhm.
Okay. Welcome, everybody, to the new and improved Three Whiskey Happy Hour, now sponsored by the Civitas Institute of the University of Texas at Austin. Because of our new sponsors, henceforth, we will be adding Texas barbecue to our list of culinary obsessions, with new libations to come depending on whether the advertisers send Steve Hayward more money, like McDonald's and the big new McCart. How's that, Steve?
That was pretty
I
good,
gotta
but
tell you, I'm really excited about this new. This is me, Robert F. Kennedy, agree on something at last, which is more meat patties and less bread in our burgers. It only came out this week, and I haven't been able to get to McDonald's to get one because I've been eating too much Texas barbecue here in Austin, Texas. But I'm
well,
going to
but
get
you
to one this
also,
weekend.
yeah, but also, John, you lost your Bucky's virginity this week, right? You went to your first
Oh,
Bucky's, and
oh my
isn't that great?
gosh, that was crazy. Yeah, I went to my first Bucky's, and I have to now confess that I think that they do beat Wawa. I
Ah,
didn't think I'd ever live to see the day,
wow.
but I got to
You
tell
owe
you,
me an apology, John.
this beef jerky bar. I mean,
Yeah.
I can't believe such a thing exists. I was so pleased. There's 25, 30 different flavors of beef
Right.
jerky, and it's almost like they combined Wawa with Costco. I could go and ask for free sample tastes of any of the barbecue, of any of the beef jerky. It was amazing.
I'm surprised we
Amazing.
even got you back from the place. I thought you would just like camp out
Oh,
there.
now the weird thing is, this is very Texas too. I suppose you guys explain this to me. There's so much food, drink, and as you guys predicted, the cleanest bathrooms of any rest stop I've ever seen, but no place to sit and eat. What's the deal with that?
Yeah.
They just want you out?
I'm not sure. That's an interesting question. I think they want people to take stuff to go and eat in their cars and their RVs or go someplace else. And I'll bet there's a theory on that. But I mean,
It's one of the. I was just going to say one of the things that differentiated our time in Europe from what we experience in America, the conveniences of paper cups and get you on the road. You can have tablecloths for your lap, sort of thing, so you can eat with both hands while you're driving. In almost no place, at least in Germany or Switzerland or Italy that I visited, ever even had so much as a paper coffee cup or a disposable coffee cup. You stop at a roadside gas station and you sit and you drink your coffee out of porcelain, and so
They don't
Buc-ee's
understand the
is.
rest stop. They don't understand rest stop.
Nope. And a lot of they may be different now, but the German cars don't have cup holders
Couple,
in
yeah.
them.
Me and Mercedes and BMW were very late in adding cup holders in the United States.
huh? Interesting.
Yeah, because they
So
didn't think you should be distracted
different
from
attitude.
driving. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or they
Well,
just think you should sit there and take some time, part of your 30-hour work week, the other 10 hours you can spend in a gas station drinking coffee out of porcelain cups.
yeah.
So
Right.
So my good
Well,
friend, our good friend Phil Munoz, I was talking to on the phone, he wants to join and live chat, but he says, I refuse to pay Steve Hayward $40 a
No,
year
he
for the
doesn't.
privilege.
He doesn't have
Look,
to.
he's not
I know,
paying
I
any
told him
attention,
that.
right? Yeah, he's not paying any attention at all. I don't
Tell him
see
he
him
can
on
pay
the live
me,
chat, but
but he doesn't need to pay Steve.
Look, if
well,
all it takes is $50 for us to get Phil to shut up, I'm happy to put that
oh,
barrier up there.
Not very nice. Our friend John Fund also joined.
Oh,
yeah, right.
so John Fund and I have a secret obsession together, which is we are huge fans of The Prisoner, the English
Oh, of course.
TV
Right,
show, which is amazing. And
right.
I sat there with him for an hour at a conference where he explained all these secrets to the show which I had seen many times. I had no idea. It was amazing.
Wow.
He is like
Well,
a
this is
he's like a
yes.
wizard guru of the Prisoner. It was astounding. I learned so many things about the show from him. And for those of you who know it, it's about a spy who's kidnapped, but he doesn't know which side kidnapped him, and he's put in this little village, which I think is called Port Marion. Is that what's called in England? Which is like this strange. It looks like a Disneyland. It's like an Englishman's version of Disneyland. It's like fake city, fake things. But now, after talking to him, I actually want to go visit this town, which exists, which you can go visit
Yeah.
and hang out in. So I want to.
I think it's down in Cornwall or Devonshire. But John, I mean, this is obvious you wouldn't know this, and why John Fund does is that was an early, very big hit with libertarians. I mean, that's part of
really?
libertarian. It's part of libertarian. It's part of the libertarian canon, John. So
Oh, I didn't know that.
of course you don't.
That's why I know nothing about it.
That's why. Yeah,
Never
that's
even
why
heard of it.
Lucretia's never heard of it. Oh, look, Phil Munoz has joined, which means he coughed up $40.
No,
to
he
make fun
didn't.
of Steve and Linda.
Anybody can
It's
get
all
on here.
free.
Quit giving disinformation, John. All right.
Okay, first issue of course, is the Iran war, and I want to defend Steve and I because we made a prediction at the end of the last podcast when we were asked by Lucretia whether we thought that the United States would attack Iran, and we were criticized. I'm told, because I don't read the comments, but people say my co-host said we were criticized for getting it wrong. We did not get it wrong. Steve and I said that we would attack Iran within the next week.
Well, I thought I said 3 weeks.
We did
right.
attack Iran within the next week.
But I thought I was pretty far out on a limb saying I don't think it's going to happen imminently. I think it's got another few weeks to play out. But I did say that.
And wasn't it
Trump,
actually happening as we were actually giving
right
the
after?
timing?
Yeah, I think
like 1:15 in the morning.
The planes were in the air.
Planes were in the air when we were talking.
Mm-hmm.
So that, by the way, that's why I thought this week we should offer our stock market picks since we were so good last week.
We were right. Jesus,
I know.
You guys are so lack confidence.
Well,
you were totally right.
And you guys didn't even respond to when you started in on your South Korean stock market nonsense. And I said, you can't even come close to the Lucretia investment strategy.
What's that?
I kept telling Mr. Lucretia, I want my own gold bar. And he wouldn't do it. He wouldn't do it. He wouldn't do it. So I went and bought my own at $2,100 an ounce about a year ago. And guess how much money I have now in that nice little gold bar. So I'm very happy.
21.
53.60 an ounce the last I saw.
Yeah, it's actually down this week. I'm not sure how, which is kind of a surprise.
Not by much.
No, but you would have thought it would have gone up along with oil prices. So
I still made a lot of money.
Look, of course, Lucretia's investments are going to be gold bars, ammunition, and like that 1 year's worth of freeze-dried food.
Nah. I'm with you. The one thing I've ever agreed with you about, John, is I'm not too worried about having more than a month's supply of food because one way or the other, I'll get it because I have ammo.
Okay, so the Iran war. So,
oh, yeah.
First, Lucretia, do you think this is a big mistake? Aren't you the most MAGA person on the podcast, and isn't MAGA up in arms about this neocon president who's achieving everything Dick Cheney wished we could have done in the first and second Bush administrations? Lucretia, what do you think about the Iran war?
I do think that Iran it's certainly an existential threat to Israel. We have been at war, technically, I think you could say, at least from the Iranian point of view, since 1979. I'm old enough to remember watching our hostages, watching the United States be humiliated by those Muslim Islam scum people in Iran, and I'm very glad to see them go. And the fact I don't see a lot of people commenting about this, but the fact that they are that Iran is attacking all of those other Middle Eastern states seems to me to be really stupid on their part. I don't really
Mm.
quite follow what the idea behind that is. Do they expect that they'll just cower and say, "Oh, we're going to join back up with you" or something? Maybe you guys can explain that one to me. But I am 100% behind Trump and Hegseth on this, and I do not believe that this is a neocon attack. I hope it doesn't last a long time. I don't think it's a forever war. I do believe, many of you saw my ex posts that that forever wars are a choices made by corrupt politicians to make sure that they can funnel millions and probably billions of dollars to their friends. This is
Oh,
not one of those.
Lucretia, come on.
She's not.
You might have
Yeah,
seen
right.
today that the president demanded the unconditional surrender of
Yeah.
Which
Iran.
he
Big
qualified.
mistake? True. Good idea. Big mistake.
Well,
What
well,
do
you mean
think?
Lucretia? You mean he qualified in the sense of saying, "I want to have a say in it,"
Saying
or
picking the
No, he
next leaders
qualified
in
by
Iran.
saying that an unconditional surrender did not necessarily mean that a non-existent current leadership would come down and raise a white flag. It meant that their military capabilities would be completely destroyed. It would
well,
not
okay,
require. He qualified it by saying it would not require someone, whomever that might be, uh, to come out and say we unconditionally
Give up.
surrender.
Plus,
yeah,
I think
well,
he
all right,
said something in the same tweet about wanting to pick the next leadership of Iran in there too, which is kind of like unconditional surrender.
yeah. I mean,
Steve,
I think I mean, I think that qualification means it's not really unconditional surrender, or certainly not the way it was meant in World War II. Which there's a live argument now about whether it was a mistake to do that back then. Now, I do think it should be said two things. One is there's several surveys out showing overwhelming Republican support for Trump on this. But I think beyond that, if you go back 10 years now, Trump was, of course, a great critic of the Iran and Iraq war, stupid wars
hmm
overseas. But he's never been a total non-interventionist. He never joined with the hardcore MAGA people about being down on Ukraine. He was always conditional about that, right? And of course, we saw from the first term, especially with the killing of Soleimani, this is man not averse to using some force in the matter.
hmm
So I think we shouldn't be surprised, and I don't think the Iranians should have thought that they could have bluffed Trump through by stringing him out as long as they did, even. Although I think now what we know is it took time to prepare this operation. It's really quite impressive. And I'll say to me, the most significant thing of the week, and I'm trying to pick on things that won't be rendered obsolete by events in the next 24 hours or so. But to me, the most significant thing of the week was the sinking of the Iranian destroyer out in the open ocean, a couple thousand miles away from the battlefield.
Why? Why is that important? To me, that
Why
was
is that
like the
significant?
game. That's just because I can see in your bookshelves you have the game Battleship back there.
I
And you
do
put the little,
not.
you put the little things in. 2-4, boom! You hit my battleship. I know Hayward's a big fan of that game. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
no,
Why is that?
I think,
Why is taking an
well,
Iranian destroyer out near Sri Lanka important?
Well, I think it's important for this reason. I mean, look, we easily could have said, and I think, by the way, any other administration would have sent some message through the Indians or somebody. You can't sail that ship back to your country. You need to be quarantined in India or Sri Lanka for the duration of however long this goes on. We did that kind of sort of with a couple of German ships in World War II. They steamed
Oh
into
yeah.
Paraguay and stayed there for the whole war. Instead, the signal it sends is we really do mean it. We're not pussyfooting around here. We're gonna do absolutely everything to degrade your military, and if that means shooting your your top line brand new ships, practically, I understand. Then we're gonna do all that. It reminded me, and I've been, I thought to myself, I haven't had a good analogy for a while to annoy Lucretia. But it reminds me, it's not identical, but this does remind me, and I dusted off my old Churchill books to look it up. in July of 1940, so only 3 weeks after France had capitulated to the Germans. And the terms included the French fleet was supposed to be surrendered to the Germans or Italians.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the French Navy said, we won't do it. We'll defect to the British. We don't want to do that. But some stayed loyal to Vichy and said they were going to submit. So what did Churchill do? He told them, you either submit to us or we sink your fleet. He didn't want to do that. In fact, even though Churchill was cheered for, he did that. He did sink the fleet in Oran. Many hundreds of French sailors who weeks before were allies were killed in that raid. And Churchill was cheered in the House of Commons. He was personally very upset and depressed about it because he really didn't want to do it, but thought he had to. But most important was what he called later the moral effect of it. And it emerged later that Franklin Roosevelt took note of that and said, that was the moment we know that Churchill meant it about winning. And that was the moment, by the way, Roosevelt turned on his ambassador to Great Britain, one Joseph Kennedy, remember, who kept saying England's finished. We shouldn't try and help these guys. It's hopeless, right? And that's when Roosevelt said, no, these guys are actually going to win, and they just showed me why. And so I think there's something like that. I think the moral effect of sinking that ship is quite dramatic, and that'll be a signal to everybody that we really mean business.
I think the more important thing that happened this week is it proved what an absolute moron, idiot, incompetent, white lily-livered boob Barack Obama was.
Do we need more evidence of that?
So now
Why is that?
Now, not only has his signature domestic supposed achievement been proven to be an unmitigated disaster, Obamacare, if you're not following that one, his supposed great international foreign affairs achievement, dropping literally pallets of cash, millions and millions of dollars on the Iranians in order to keep them from pursuing their nuclear weapons, which of course, he was just, what a patsy he is. Everything about that man is despicable, including his choice of wives.
Oh, no,
I'll be done.
Lucretia. So, okay, Lucretia, when you remember Mrs. Obama said something like, when they go low, we go high. But then Lucretia dragged them back low.
Well,
that is high. That's the highest praise I can think of for either one of them. I'm done.
Well, Lucretia, let me ask you this about what's going on in Iran, because it ties back to your question of what does Iran do? They start firing off missiles at everybody, even people who are trying to help them. Is it the Iranian strategy just to try to destabilize the Middle East as badly as possible in the hope this will put pressure on the Trump administration to end the war earlier than it wants? And isn't that a worry that the MAGA wing that you used to be a member of but seemed to be no longer was mostly worried about was that this would just drag the United States into another quagmire in the Middle East? Is this not going to be another Iraq that we're going to have to come in and clean everything up and in all these destabilized countries, and as a result we're going to get stuck again?
No, I don't believe
Why
that's
not?
going to happen. Number one, I refuse to be put in dumb categories. I am not going to be put into a neocon or a non-neocon or any of those dumb categories. I don't know about MAGA. I do believe in making America great, and I do believe in America first. I believe that our actions in Iran are America first. I also believe that if how do I say this differently? If you think about the culture, the religion, the societal situation, environment, atmosphere in Iran, and compare that to Afghanistan, for instance, or even Iraq, I mean, there's possibilities for the Persian people that were probably never possibilities. Let me give you this example. Trump didn't go in there saying, oh, whatever we do, we can't have people be Islamophobes, and Islam is a religion of peace, and whatever you do, don't go around being prejudicial against Islam and Muslims. He knows better than that. That was George Bush's stupid, moronic. Oh, I can't even. But anyway, no, I don't think it's that. I do think America's security will be enhanced by a regime toppling. I don't know that we have to do that all ourselves. I think the Persian people are, and I'm gonna call them the Persian people, Steve, are going to
Yeah,
take that
no, that's
on
fine. Yeah.
themselves. And they're closer to Western people than or were than probably anybody in the Middle East other than the Israelis. Anyway, I think I'm going to support Trump throughout this. I know you're going to go on to the next question, so I won't preempt you about it. But I think the Democrats' responses to this are not just disingenuous, lying, and all of that. But I think they're harmful. I think that they're un-American, and that I can't believe that they hate Trump so much that they're doing what they're doing. But I'll let Steve made a couple of faces at me. So
Let me ask Steve one question, maybe to prompt more from you is: does the Trump administration really have an end game here that's achievable? President Trump seems to think that there will be an uprising by the Iranian people to overthrow
already
this government.
was.
We don't really, but
What?
is that really going to happen when all the guns are in the hands of the
Yeah.
regime? And you have, of course, millions of people clearly would like to be free of this regime, but they have no means to carry it out. And if they can't, then what is the end game without any kind of rebellion? Are we just going to keep bombing them and bombing them until what happens? That's the question. What is the end game here, Steve?
Yeah, right. Well, there is this question, live question about whether we can affect regime change from bombing alone. And Hegseth said he doesn't rule out boots on the ground, which I do wish Hegseth would drink decaf sometimes. But anyway, it's well, you are hearing that we might be mobilizing the Kurds, who I think would be happy to sweep in.
We know, might be, we are.
Well, look, I know it's in the news, but I think we don't know for sure. Look, you always take all these news reports with a grain of salt because I bet our news people don't know what they're right.
I know.
Well, okay, well maybe you have their sources, but look, I mean, mobilizing the Kurds is not going to please the Turks or the Iraqis, right? Although I've long thought we ought to just establish a Kurdistan. I don't know what the holdup is on any anyway.
Turkey's a whole nother crazy situation. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but
Well, I know,
That's
right?
another country Lucretia wants to bomb. Oh wait, no, she sounds like Dick Cheney again.
Well, look, I mean, but I'll go back briefly to the. We didn't.
Oh, Steve's gone.
oh no,
Thank
what do
God.
we do now?
Now this is awesome. Okay, let's talk about the next thing, which is the legal issue related to the. So you said you were previewing it there just a second ago, but Lucretia, what do you think about the president's use of force without any congressional approval? And then this week, just yesterday, the House failed to block the war. The Senate failed the day before, but you saw Rand Paul and Representative Massey voting with the Democrats to stop the war. What do you think about the constitutional issue? And
So let's talk about that, because that's something you and I both sort of focus on. I teach the War Powers Act to my students in the presidency class, in the con law, separation of powers class. And here's the point: leave aside whether or not the War Powers Act is unconstitutional for a moment. That's a secondary issue.
yeah,
The first issue is every president, since it was passed, starting with Ford, has used the War Powers Act to its advantage. It has ended up being, in almost every president, it has ended up being a grant of power to the president. Um, and Congress has come along and then passed other kinds of authorizing statutes and so on. But right now, Trump is perfectly within his War Powers Act powers in what he's done. Now, if 60 days goes by and Congress doesn't do anything, and he pushes the issue, but anybody who might not know, the War Powers Act requires, before a president introduces troops into areas where there are hostilities or hostilities are imminent, he must get the approval of Congress. But if he does it without the approval of Congress, he has to make a report within 48 hours of said introduction of troops into hostilities or areas where hostilities are imminent. Trump did that, and that starts the 60-day period. Now, I mean, I heard Ruben Gallego, who may be dumber than Hirano and AOC and the guy with the Puerto Rico tipping over, Guam tipping over, put together. I could not believe Brett Baer put that idiot on to actually try to defend the Democratic position. But Trump has done what is legal under the War Powers Act. And again, why are they complaining about it? Repeal the War Powers Act, and then then Trump has a whole different constitutional argument to make. But right now, statutorily, according to Congress, he is perfectly in the rights doing what he's doing. Am I wrong about that, John?
Well, actually, you're quite right in your reading of the statute. It says presidents need the approval of Congress to have troops in an area of hostilities when they're past 60 days. So, as you say, there's a 60-day clock. And
you can go to 90 to bring them back safely.
To bring them back, you get another 30 days to bring them back. But Trump's within the 60 days. In fact, the first president, and now what people have observed is it's almost like a congressional admission, as you say, that the presidents have this discretion. And as you say, also, most presidents never conceded the legality of the act, but acted within those 60 days. It's actually Bill Clinton who was the first president to actually just outright violate the clock. The air war in Kosovo went on for longer than 60 days, and Congress never authorized it. By the way, one other thing about your point about legality is there was a lawsuit brought by Tom Campbell, Stanford law professor, expert on separation of powers, who represented the Palo Alto district. And there's a case called Campbell versus Clinton, which I teach in law school, because it's the highest court. The D.C. Circuit is really the highest court to ever weigh in on this. And the D.C. Circuit said deciding on war and Congress versus the president is a political question, and it's outside judicial competence. Let the Congress and president fight it out. And I think that's actually accurate, that's really what's happened. The other thing about whether one way to read the law is that it doesn't have an enforcement mechanism. It doesn't say what happens at the end of 60 days. It says the president has to pull out the troops. What happens if he doesn't? So I've always read it as it's Congress promising it's going to do something at the end of the clock, but then they never do anything.
Well, and then isn't there one more issue, John, and that's the legislative veto, which is essentially the requirement that both houses of Congress, in order to, when they have already authorized the president to do something, when they must act in order to keep, they passed a law and now it requires their action once they've authorized the president. It's essentially a legislative veto, which the Supreme Court declared to be unconstitutional in INS versus Chadha. Nobody's made that argument specifically, probably because they use the legislative veto all the time anyway. But again, it mixes up the way the Constitution wants congressional and executive power to work, especially in the area of foreign affairs. The whole point behind the War Powers Act was to make sure that something like Vietnam didn't happen again, but they had authorized the president in Vietnam with the Tonkin Gulf resolution. So
and they didn't need the War Powers resolution because they ended the war by cutting off funding. And that
cutting off funding, which is their constitutional power. They should be
my argument has always been that the real check on the president's war-making power is not declaring war or not declaring war, but just cutting off funds. And one piece of, I think, why this is historically true is because before 1945, we didn't have a large standing army. So anytime the president really wanted to go to war, he had to go to Congress and say, please build me the military to fight the war. And the funding check, this draws more on my time working in Congress, the funding check is a perfect check, because if you do nothing, nothing happens. If you do nothing and pass no bill, the funding ceases. So it's only the check actually is overridden only when Congress decides to pass a law to add more money to the military coffers. And so if you have a 50.1% majority of the House that doesn't want, or the Senate that doesn't want a war to go on, they just have to not pass a law, not pass an appropriation. And modern warfare will come to a halt because it's so expensive, and we are drawing down so severely on our munition stops, that they have to be replenished. Apparently, President Trump is going to come to Congress in a week or two and ask for more funds, or the Iran war will stop.
Will it stop? I mean, we do have the appropriations through September 30th.
But remember, you need the ability to reprogram. So there's limits on how much money you can move around within the Defense Department budget. The other
Anyway, I think
go ahead, Lucretia.
I'm sorry. My only point is that I am constantly amazed by the gaslighting of Democrats on this issue, and a few
I was
Republicans.
just about to ask you that, the consistency issue. Where was everybody when President Obama launched an air war in Libya? And actually, if the Venezuelan intervention had a parallel in the 1989 George H.W. Bush invasion of Panama, this war has a closer parallel than people think. In 2011, without a declaration of war authorization, President Obama launched an air war in Libya, which was designed to overthrow the regime of Gaddafi. And it did.
It did, and of course, it made Libya a much worse place. But that's a different story. You should be the one challenging me to tell me what national security interest we had in toppling Gaddafi in 2011. I think we were still in our make the Middle East safe for democracy sort of mindset. I don't think there was any American national security interest, central national security interest in the same way that I believe there is in Iran. I mean, you've seen the memes where they list, what did we ever do to you? And then, it's just time after time after time where Iran is behind killing American citizens, killing American troops, et cetera, both directly, but mostly, of course, through their proxies.
Well, this is where I think international law has, in a way, corrupted our domestic arguments, because you heard several members of Congress say there was no imminent threat from Iran. That's not a requirement in the Constitution for military action, that there be an imminent threat from another country. That is a standard from international law. There is this idea that to have an adequate justification for the right to use force in self-defense, there has to be an imminent threat of attack. This is actually a natural law question, Lucretia. This puzzle me. This great natural law scholar Tress. So the thing that's interesting to me is that the natural law of self-defense between two individuals, between you and me, is governed by the idea of, right, you can use force, violent force, deadly force, to defend yourself. And you don't have to wait for the attack to fall upon you. If you see the other person coming at you, right, pulling the gun out of the holster, you're allowed to shoot first. You don't have to wait for the other person to shoot you before you respond. That's called anticipatory self-defense. Why should that rule apply between nations? It has the same roots in the natural law. The international law is probably the purest form of natural law still in use, I think. But why should that govern between nations? It makes total sense to me as governing between people. But why should natural law principles like that govern between the U.S. and Iran?
I'm not sure that they do, John.
I'm not sure they do.
I don't think so. It takes a lot of stretch to get to the point where one sovereign people becomes an entity that possesses rights. They don't. I think that what has happened over time is that, this is how I would put it, and I'll try to do this quickly. A sovereign people in a country based upon consent, based upon the idea that it was put together for the safety and happiness of the citizens of that sovereign nation, recognizes that the decision to go to war, the decision to attack another country, or the decision to provide for their security is, that decision has limitations. I suppose you could say, if you're the most powerful country in the world, as the U.S. has been many times, we could have just wiped all the other nations off the planet and then we'd have been fine. But we don't operate that way, because there are prudential considerations, John, that I think might.
Well, you just ruined such a beautiful discussion.
No, but you know what I mean.
Yes.
And we see that all. Even you have said on several occasions when like the Venezuela, the bombing of the boats, the taking the boats out of the water, the drug
Yeah,
boats
the
out of the
drug
water.
cartels. Yeah.
Yeah, drug cartels. Even you have said the Trump administration could do a better job of explaining why they're doing this. You said that
Oh,
on this
yeah.
podcast. You said and what that means to me is in a Republican form of government, you do have to make the reasoned, rational argument and get support from the people. Now, Iran doesn't have to do that, obviously, and that has to be
Mhm.
part of our calculation. So it really becomes much more complicated, I think, than just I won't. I'll shoot you if you look like you're going to be taking away my glass of scotch.
Actually, that's a good point because Steve was so eager to get us to talk about beef products that we didn't go through what we were drinking. Lucretia, what are you drinking?
I'm I'm about to get myself fired because I'm actually drinking a Glenfiddich, 14-year-old in sherry cask that I
Why
snuck
would you
into
be
my
fired?
drawer because I'm at my office at school, and it's
You
oh
know,
I know
I think your freedom of religion includes the right to consume alcohol,
I
but I
it,
know
it
Phil
well
Munoz would disagree because he's listening. He doesn't think any of these rights are enforceable in court for some reason. I, however, am drinking HEB flavored. This is great. HEB, which is another thing I discovered in Texas, along with Bucky's, has its own line of basically everything, and this is sparkling water, peach guava flavored.
oh
I'm feeling fruitier just by drinking it.
you're looking
So I
fruitier,
have an
John.
announcement.
Yeah, we
I
have
have an
announcement,
announcement for
folks.
our listeners. I'm sorry, but as you may have noticed, the content of the podcast got so much better and more serious because Steve Hayward dropped out. And so we have technical difficulties with Steve. So, yes, Steve has started a new live stream. What we're going to do is close this one down, I'm afraid. Steve is going to send invites to everybody, and he's instructing us all to rejoin the other one. So please close this one. I hope this works. Please close this one, and we will now all
Hope to
go
see you on the
and
other
join
side.
Steve. You can tell what Steve was like as a kid. When he was kicked out of the game, he took all the toys and went to his own treehouse, and now we have to go to his treehouse. Okay, bye,
Bye,
everybody. We'll see
everyone.
you at the other live stream. Was Godfather 2 better than Godfather 1? Was Revenge of the Jedi better than the original Star Wars? Is the sequel going to be better than the original?
Yeah, right. Boy, that is really weird. Anyway, I couldn't seem to figure out how to get back
You were
in.
getting fuzzy a couple of times, so Steve, I was a little worried.
I'll bet. I'll bet.
I can't tell you the live stream comments. I guess we've lost them all. We're going on about how the podcast suddenly approved about 10 minutes ago.
You are so bad.
People are like, what happened? The content just got so much more sophisticated and interesting. I was like, I don't know. I can't tell you why.
We're going to get even with you.
Okay,
So that was just strange. I mean,
Steve, let me pull you into it and ask you a simple question. Can you tell me what our national security interests were in bombing Libya in 2011?
Good question. I don't know because Libya became very quiet after 9/11 when I think they were worried that we were going to attack them.
Not only that, they turned over their nuclear weapons,
right?
Their nuclear
Exactly.
material because they were afraid we were going to bomb them in 2003.
Right. Yeah, that's right. And isn't that interesting? I don't know what the problem was then. I think I don't remember now.
Well, I guess my point is that. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Well,
you get a little chance to talk.
Well, let's
Steve.
move on to issue 3 because actually there's a great segue between issues 2 and 3, which was natural law. So I just want to put a pin in that last discussion, which Steve was not present for. Steve, you missed out on 10 minutes of discussion of natural law.
Oh, man.
We're not going to let you come in late on it. Sorry.
Well, I'll get reviews from Phil.
For the first time, no, this was great. For the first time when it was just Lucretia, I finally understood what the hell you guys were talking about.
No, you don't.
Just kidding. No, I don't. But the pin in it is, I just want to put the pin in the issue, which is why should natural law govern relations with states, between states, the way they govern relations between individuals? Because the rules on self-defense between nations is almost identical, and it comes from the same source. as
Right.
self-defense. Anyway, let's talk about it another time. But yet another, I hate to say this, another victory
No.
for natural law, which I will describe now and ask for your commentary, which is this week, the Supreme Court, in a 6-3 vote, a case called Mirabelli, right? Beautiful View versus Bonta. Bonta, the
Oh,
anti-Mirabelli. I just want to
yeah.
get that in before Lucretia attacked his looks with her lookism. The Supreme Court struck down a California law, which had been causing a lot of controversy in California, which forbade teachers, right, from telling parents of children that their children were engaged in gender changes, name changes, pronoun changes. And the thing that's interesting is, uh, I think there were two challenges. One was this: I think the teachers were claiming they had a First Amendment right here to disclose to the parents, but the court said the reason why this uh, protection for transgenderism was unconstitutional was that it interfered with the right of the parents
Yeah.
to raise their children. Now, this is not in the text of the Constitution. And the court admitted it. What they said is this is the substantive due process right of parents that has been recognized by the court for
Yes.
about 100 years now.
Yeah,
But
the Oregon case, right? The old
Yeah.
Oregon case from 1923.
Here's
here,
Yeah,
the
Pierce versus
Society of
Sisters,
Sisters
right.
is the most famous. There's another one called Meyer. There's a
Mhm.
series that, for example, the Meyer versus Nebraska, if I remember correctly, was a state law that prohibited parents from teaching their children German.
Yeah, that was it. Right.
Mhm.
Which
Yeah.
seems to me a very sensible law. I mean, there's just more languages other than the German. Yes, why should we let them learn the language of our enemies? But anyway, so the court has always said that there is some kind of natural right of parents to control the education and upbringing of their children, but it's not in any constitutional text. So, Steve, how do you reconcile this idea that parents have this right with the text of the Constitution, which doesn't say anything about parents or children, actually?
Oh, are we really?
Doesn't even use the words.
Are we really doing this again? I can't believe it. We make no progress with you, John.
Hey, we just did.
Well, okay. I wasn't there. I wasn't.
Yeah,
I
he wasn't
didn't
there.
see it. Um, well, look. Let me work backwards here. I think for the left, the most terrifying part of this decision is not specifically the issue itself that hasn't worked up, but the fact that somebody, was it Gorsuch, said actually used the phrase substantive due process.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And if that's going to come back from the new, semi-conservative, Lucretia's grimacing, she doesn't like this idea. But the point is that suggests that the court is ready to say, wait a minute, there are principles, deep principles beyond the Constitution anchored in natural law that lead to an easy result of saying, wait, if we're not going to respect parents' rights over their own families, then something's gone badly awry, right? I mean, this is like the debate over the ex post facto clause we talked about several times, where James
Yes.
Wilson and others said, we don't need to put that in there. It's kind of obvious. The Constitution did not need to put in something about parental rights because no one in 1787 would have thought a statute such as the one you have in California made any sense at all. And so I don't know. I don't think it's that hard a result to get to.
I think
Lucretia?
anybody who's studied a little bit of Aristotle understands that
Right.
there's no basis for a political community that doesn't start with the family. And a good political community, the best regime, of course, is the telos. It's the end, but all political relations actually start with the family, and the relationship between parents and children is well outlined there and has been understood to, again, probably more than ex post facto. That's why I cringed just a little bit when you said that, until you sort of clarified you meant that it didn't need to be included in the Constitution discussion at the convention. But I think that it is part of the agenda of the left, the project of the left, among other things, completely to destroy the family. We know that the communists did that. All you have to do is read Witness by Whittaker Chambers and all sorts of other things. Elena is the name of the nonfiction work about the guy's mom in Greece when the communists take over. All you have to do is read that. You can see that think about Elian Gonzalez. The idea is to destroy the family structure and replace it with, well, whatever. In the case of our leftists, they want to destroy Western civilization. That's the reason for promoting trans. It's the reason, for all of those things. And so I don't know, when you're a court, you always want to be careful how you do those things. I hate to see them go to the substantive due process clause, but since the cat is out of the bag that we're now originalists, they have to have something. I prefer the privileges and immunities clause.
Yeah. Okay.
But that's a different story.
No, I'd like that one better too. Look, I'll sort of add this way. You don't have to even read. Actually, just read the communists themselves, going back even before Marx, right? And this is kind of in Plato a little bit, although he's probably mischievous. But today, it's well understood that yes, but I don't want to do that now. It takes too long. The point is,
wait, Plato was joking when he talked about taking the kids away and raising them, beyond without their parents.
You had to say yes for now.
In the service of the state.
You had to do it, Lucretia, didn't you? You
really?
Had to pull the trigger.
Wait, how am I supposed to know which parts of Plato or
read Strauss
Central and which?
No. Oh God, here we go again.
What are you talking about? Plato says clearly he doesn't want. That was what I was going to ask next.
Al, leave Plato out of this for today. Look,
well, you started talking about Aristotle. I thought we were.
Well,
I thought there was a social contract in the state of nature. Where did this family as the structure of all politics?
Oh, that's modern. Never mind. Look, the point is, it's clear from social science, which is maybe we'll get to, maybe we won't, is that the family today is the greatest engine of inequality, as the left thinks of it, right? They want straight egalitarianism. And, you go back to, forget Plato, just go back to the early socialists of the early 19th century, before Marx does the dialectic. And they all said, if you're going to have equality, we have to nationalize the children. And I do think that's the animating principle. I think I agree with Lucretia about the left's hatred for our civilization, what Roger Scruton called the culture of repudiation. But you don't have to go that far. The family is the obstacle to every egalitarian design today. And
yes,
let me ask you this: why?
Madami, Dami, Wami, Swami.
No,
what does he want to do? Force childcare. I mean, that's sort of like his number one policy initiative is this free childcare. And I couldn't give a damn. New Yorkers are so stupid; they get what they deserve.
Why is that anti-family? He would say that's pro-family, wouldn't he?
No, it's absolutely not pro-family. It's just a little bit like what Plato talked about, and I'll leave it at that.
But he was joking, I hear. Gosh, I did not know Plato was so funny. You guys
hilarious. And you know what Strauss says about it? It was the greatest tragedy of history that Plato resurfaced amongst the Germans with their cosmic lack of a sense of humor, or something along those lines.
So
let me ask you one other. Let me ask you one follow-up, Steve. One follow-up.
Oh, wait a second. I just have to stick in here that Lucretia and I have been saying for years. We learned this from our teachers, that the problem with Marx is he read Plato and didn't get the joke. Turns out that John Yoo doesn't get the joke either.
I don't get the joke. Which you guys are going to have to give me like the edited version with the parts that you think he's joking highlighted and then the other stuff not highlighted. So
why don't we do a whole half? Let's do a whole half episode about that sometime.
Yeah,
it's too late today.
That would be fun.
Educate you, right?
But one more question though is: suppose I agreed with you that more as a matter of morality, we should not allow the government to dictate or interfere with the way parents raise their children. And this is really, I think, the Scalia point is, why is it the job of the courts to do that? If it really is a matter of such strong universal morality, then we should allow the states to decide. For example, we do that now with abortion, right? That was the great argument that conservatives made against abortion. Why should the courts intervene about abortion rights? Let each state decide it for itself. And look, I live in California. If my crazy co-residents want to pass this stupid bill, and they want to destroy the family in California, then that's the mistake of Californians, and people can leave or change the government. But why should the courts be the ones to enforce morality rather than the legislatures? And the
Well,
people
first of all legislatures all they do is enforce morality. Let's be very clear about that. Every decision they make is a moral decision. And this idea that you can separate law from morality is just stupid. But I'll leave that one aside, and it's not a joke. the, some of the decisions made by, say, pro-life Catholics, to make it a little simpler, were again, John, prudential decisions. Get as much good and eliminate as much evil as possible. With the, so if rather than a national right to abortion and all of the horrible things that brings with it, you leave the question of abortion to the states where it's easier to push an agenda against it, leave it at that. It's every decision a legislature makes affects some moral question. Even if it's a taxation decision, it's who should be taxed and why should they be taxed. Do we have a moral favoritism for poor over rich, so we're going to tax the rich, we're going to tax the very wealthy in California because they're bad people for being so wealthy? I mean, don't kid yourself. Every single law makes some kind of moral judgment.
I agree with you. I think the Scalia point is make the legislatures do it. For example, on every question, like this question of the family, why is it the job of the judiciary to stop that from happening with this issue of our transgender children and the family? Steve.
Well, I could say a bunch about this. Including, our friend Hadley Arcus. By the way, if Phil Munoz is still back with us, he's having an embolism right now, John, over the way you did that question.
He's not.
Yeah, okay.
Because he had the embolism during the previous session, so he couldn't sign on because Steve screwed up the technology and Phil had his...
No, I didn't. It was Iranian hackers, I think, did it. But, well, it's...
They wouldn't have kept you, Steve.
Well,
they
look,
would have kept you.
Okay. I looked at, like our friend Hadley Arcus and Jerry Bradley, they were disappointed with the abortion decision for not going far enough, right? They did it on very minimalist grounds, because I think Hadley and others, and I think the serious pro-lifers say, we ought to declare personhood for unborn children under the 14th Amendment. And that's probably a bridge too far politically and judicially. It does remind me a little bit, in a different context, of Macaulay's great line about the Toleration Act, where he said it removed...
Oh, there you go, Lucretia. There's your analogy.
What? Well, no, it's not an analogy. I'm just, what is Macaulay's line about the Toleration Act in 1688 was it removed a great evil without disturbing a vast mass of prejudice. So what you have here is a public opinion that is confused, I think, but certainly a large plurality favors abortion. It's lumpy by states. California is probably 70%, Texas less so. And the point is that you now have, as Lucretia put it well, I think, reduced the number of abortions that are going to happen. Although so far, I'm not sure the numbers bear that out. But your question about the judiciary. Just this week, I taught the old New York case of Riggs versus I forget who. This is a case of a kid who had murdered his grandfather, in whose will he'd been named as the heir before his grandfather could change the will. And he was, of course, sentenced to prison for the murder. But he claimed his inheritance, and the judges said, no, wait a minute. You can't, what's the old joke about the person who murders his parents and asks for mercy
as
an orphan,
right? As orphan.
Right. The court said, we're not going for that logic. A person is not entitled to benefit from a clear wrong like this, even though the dissent in that case said, wait, we can't do this. The statute says a state law says he's the heir. Right? We have to execute it that way. Right. So, and there are other cases like that. U.S. v. Kirby on the U.S. attorney who arrested the sheriff in Ohio for arresting a murderer who was on a mail-carrying barge in the Ohio River, and the charge was you impeded the mail. There's a statute against that, and the Supreme Court made quick work of that, saying this is silly. Right? It was another Stephen Field opinion. Right? So I don't think there's that much difficulty. It's only a moral skeptic like you who think there's a problem with the court stepping up when they need to.
Well, When there's a warrant courting charge, I really don't want them to do it. Okay, one last issue, although do we have time to get to it?
I don't think we
so.
do, but
The
no.
technical difficulties have already
I
brought
then-
us to an hour.
Can
Yes,
I
ma'am,
then
Krisha.
bring up a topic that you nixed, but I'm actually very much interested in, and that is the Texas Senate race. Okay, bye, Jasmine. I won't have to ask you anymore. Question.
You're gonna miss her, Lucretia. You know you're
No,
gonna
I'm
miss
not.
Well,
No,
she's
I'm
still
not.
around. Still around.
Yeah,
Well,
she's still
yes.
complaining that everybody and their brother was either stupid or cheated. But anyway, I actually Tallarico's. Oh my God, you guys can talk about him. I don't think he's worth the breath of if he. But I want to talk about and when we're recording this, Trump has not made his endorsement. Ken Paxton has come out, which I think is with a very statesmanlike proposal. I will step down. I will get out of the race if that scumbag John Cornyn. I despise him for a lot of reasons.
Well, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I do. When we talked about the Johns way back when, who was going to take over from the disinterred turtle when.
Boy, you're hitting some new highlights today.
Yes, I am, and you guys write those down. No, but John Cornyn had literally tens of millions of dollars spent as an incumbent to beat James Tallarico by what, 1 percentage point or something like that.
Paxton,
you mean
not
Paxton?
Jeff. I mean Paxton. Yeah. Sorry, that's what I meant. I am not sure that Paxton couldn't win that race. And if it were up to me, if I were Trump, I would say, okay, here's your deal, folks. You Rhino Senate Republicans, Thune, and all the rest of those, either you pass the SABAC this week or I'm going to endorse Paxton. That's what I would do. And because I don't think Cornyn is everyone says, oh, he's the only one who can beat Tallarico because everybody's going to love this little cutie pie, dumbass minister. God is non-binary. There are 6 sexes, 6 genders. I guess there can't be 6 sexes. There can be a million genders because it's useless. Anyway, I'm done with those. I'm done with the John Cornyns of the world. I'm done with the James Tallaricos of the world. Supposedly Paxton has some kind of scandal in his background. I don't know what it is, but
scandals plural. Scandals.
Yeah,
I don't care. I don't
your
care.
Your thoughts on the Texas primaries before we end? And just throw out to listeners what we were gonna plan to talk about was why do Steve and Linda hate social science so much? But that'll be for next week. But Steve, so your view on the Texas primary shouldn't let me put it this way, shouldn't Paxton just concede so that Republicans can rally around Cornyn and pick up an easy to win seat, which they're going to need to keep for the majority when it looks like they're going to definitely lose the House this November, rather than having Paxton, a flawed candidate, go up and potentially lose. And even if he doesn't, the Republican Party will have to spend millions and millions to win him the seat. Steve.
Well, look, I mean, I think Paxton does have a lot of baggage, but look, the Tallarico guy, he's Beto 2.0 times 10. I mean, the attacks on him are going to be delicious. And so I think he will not be a very good candidate. Look, there was a third candidate in Republican primary, remember, who got 10, 11, 12% of the vote. And I think that those votes would have gone to Paxton, I think, if that person had not been running. People say, oh, Cornyn would have won. But Cornyn, as Lucretia points out, was only ahead of Paxton by 1 point. I've got to think that if those votes for the other person were split, Paxton would have won the primary. Because I think I'm not as down on Cornyn as Lucretia is. He's voted with Trump something like 99% of the time.
No, he hasn't.
He's a very he does.
Well, no, look, all right, those can be misleading because there has not been a vote on the SAVE Act. So, all right, I don't know if he's opposed to the SAVE Act, but the question here is 2 points.
No, he's pro SAVE Act, but he's against getting rid of the filibuster.
Well, see, I thought Lucretia was too when we brought this up a few days ago, and so I thought
I'm not. I am against it too. What I'm in favor of is the talking filibuster. That requires nothing. And they won't do it. They're too busy being on vacation.
Well, okay, fine. But point number 2 is if you start them out on a talking filibuster, Democrats are going to be happy to play that out for 6 weeks, 8 weeks longer. fine. I mean, I think she'd make them sleep in their darn cots, and I'm for it. Except remember, if you want a supplemental defense appropriation in 3 or 4 weeks from now for the war against Iran or something else, you will not be able to do it in the Senate. There
What
is
if
that
the
trade-off you have
war's
to think
over?
about. Well, if it wasn't, we won't need it. But what if it isn't over? What if you actually need the point is, and what about judges? We're going to try and confirm some appellate court judges between now and election day. What if we're 3 months into a filibuster? Because I think the Democrats will lay down in front of a train on it. Well, I'm not sure they might. They might give in because the polls show that even a majority of Democrats favor voter ID. But just remember, the point I'm only making is it is not without potentially serious costs and trade-offs to think about. That's all. By the way, I think Cornyn was a political idiot for not figuring out where the winds were blowing. I think he's kind of clueless that way. And so it's his own darn fault that
yeah, at the same time, interestingly, you
trouble,
saw Senator Daines, I think, retire in Montana.
Right.
So you're saying Cornyn should have followed his example.
Well, I don't know.
Not put up a fight and let the Republican Party pick a new candidate.
Well, but look, the Montana thing, I mean, the fix was in there. I kind of like the fact that they put the fix in because it sounds like the guy they picked is going to be pretty good. But I don't think it's a different situation in Texas. I don't think the two states are equivalent. But,
that brings us to the end of our time. So, Lucretia, what Babylon Bees do you have for us?
I'll have to keep them minimal, even though I have a whole list. So let me start. We'll work on the war ones first. Biden asks why Trump didn't just bomb Ayatollah in the leg. Obama confused to see bombs falling on Iran instead of pallets of cash.
True.
Yeah.
We didn't talk about Kristi Noem. That's fine. A lot of other
I know. I
people
wanted
have.
to talk about her, but you guys didn't want to.
I would have been fine, but I'll just go with the new DHS nominee. DHS nominee Mark Wayne Mullen, who, by the way, is a former MMA fighter, which means in my house he's very popular. DHS nominee Mark Wayne Mullen surges in popularity after vowing to deport liberal white ladies. I like that one. Then you guys know that it was 357 members of the House who decided not, in the midst of this whole travesty with the Epstein. What a waste! You talk about wasting time. Nobody gives a damn about the Epstein files. Go into them, figure out what's going on. Okay. Anyway, but they did decide not to release the records about the $17 million that have been paid out to victims of sexual harassment by members of Congress. Go figure. Congress pledges to work tirelessly to expose all sex criminals who aren't in Congress.
That's true.
Okay,
yeah.
This one's for you, Steve. America graciously converts 20 Iranian warships into new submarines.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay, this one's for our the people who pay attention to popular. Global leaders warn that if WW3 doesn't end soon, it could disrupt Taylor Swift's wedding. Not Sydney Sweeney's. I almost didn't get the reference in. Mandani orders flags. Okay, two more. Mandani orders flags at One World Trade Center, flown half staff to mourn the Ayatollah.
Yep.
Finally, Iranian generals kicking themselves for not just meeting over Zoom or Substack.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm done.
Before I do my normal stick, I just want to remind everyone that the Justice Department has put up all the Epstein files in a searchable database. And so I just put in Steve Hayward's name and got no hits. I put in Lucretia and I got hundreds and hundreds of hits.
Oh, yeah.
Check it out yourself. Check it out yourself. True. Now, I will
Lucretia.
There's someone named Lucretia who was doing a lot of stuff with Epstein. But I leave that to the listeners to play around with the database on the DOJ website. So, always drink your whiskey neat. Buy more hot Texas barbecue. That's going to be our new sign off. Yeah. And Steve, what new closing do you have in development to recognize our move to the Civitas Institute in Texas?
Well, I think the thing to do is to say if listeners, viewers are not following Civitas Outlook, where John, Lucretia, and I are, A, we're all fellows now at Civitas, and B, contributors to Civitas Outlook. It's a place you should bookmark. I think their editor, Richard Reinsch, is a really talented guy. So, that's a place you should now look for things. Second, we want to try and class up the joint a little bit, and after we work out our technical difficulties from today. Well, okay, but we should start doing some of the standard things, listeners, and say, would you please go to Apple, iTunes, your other podcast source, and give us a 5-star review. It helps us build our audience. Civitas will like it, and that's it for this week.
Well, I could care less about the reviews or the stars. Who cares what they think? We're doing it for the art.
They promote it more.
That's right. That's right.
I have a final word. And this one's for Jim, who's not joined. He doesn't, but he likes to watch it early in the morning when he can't sleep. This is for our listener, Jim, or otherwise known as the Doppler.
Oh.
Don't forget to milk the hard power.
Oh, hard power. We should do that. See, this is a
dividend.
Throwback.
Sorry, yeah, dividend. I was thinking I got
throwback. It sounded much
throwback.
more
It's
lascivious without dividend.
I know. Dividends. Don't forget
just as Potter Stewart, he knew pornography when
look, can I just say, look, for recent listeners, this is a throwback to Trump 1. When we ended the show, then it was just me and Lucretia in those days, but we ended the show with Samantha Power's famous remark on election night 2016 when Hillary lost, saying, I was looking forward to milking the soft power dividend. I thought, if that isn't the perfect encapsulation of flabby, idiotic liberalism, I don't know what is. So we ran with that for a long time till it got old. But now, hard power dividend, right? Yeah.
The hard
power dividend. Yes,
that's right.
I'm a big book. That should be like the neocon anthem. Anyway, goodbye, right. Everybody.
Okay.
Thanks a lot.
Ruin it. Why don't you, John?
See you next week.
God.